there guys, PortalMaster9351 here, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my full review for Starlink Battle for Atlas. Now this is a game that I have been taking my time playing my way through for the past week and a half. If you want to watch my full Let's Play, of course you can check that out on my channel, but now that I have beaten this game, done the Star Fox content, done all the story content, I haven't 100%ed it yet, but I have done a significant portion of this game. I want to give my thoughts, especially as a Skylanders fan, but also as a gamer in general. This isn't just going to be a straight-up comparison video to Skylanders. If you guys would like me to do sort of a thoughts and opinions from a Skylanders fan's perspective, like specifically in relation to it being a Toys to Life game, I can certainly do that. But this is more of it as a game as a whole, and less trying to focus on the Toys to Life aspect of the game. However, of course, with that being such an essential part of it, we will be discussing that. So let's dive right into my review of Starlink Battle for Atlas. So Starlink Battle for Atlas is of course this massive open world game with 7 unique planets, and you can get in your little starship, fly around, go to whichever one you want. You're trying to blow back the Forgotten Legion. Pretty cool and engaging story. So overall, the gameplay is actually very, very nice. Of course, it is made by Ubisoft and it is an RPG, so it's a little bit grindy at times, but honestly, it's a lot of fun just in general to go around the world and play the game. All 7 planets are very unique. You have Vilas, Karit, Sonatus, Haven. I won't list them all out, but they're very, very unique worlds. It's what No Man's Sky should have been in the fact that they all have unique ecosystems and worlds are distinct. They have wildlife that is unique to their own. They have plants unique to their own. Each world is unique and is its own environment. And I really, really enjoy that. As someone who was initially very, very hyped for No Man's Sky, only to see that it turned out to be a hot pile of garbage, that really disappointed me, not only because, well, you know, it was No Man's Sky, but also as someone who loves space, I really, really wanted a good space-based game with exploration, unique environments. Starlink does that right. I should say, though, obviously, it's not the same as No Man's Sky because it's not random at all, and of course the gameplay is completely different. But in terms of the theming that they actually managed to pull off on these worlds, it's really, really well done. And what I think a lot of people wanted from No Man's Sky. Not as expansive, but still very cool and unique. And of course, on each planet there is a ton to discover and look for and collect. There are unique animals that you can go around and catalog, unique items that you can go around and pick up. Each planet has a wonder, and of course there are many, many other secrets that you can find on each planet. Tons of combat to be had, and of course, when you're trying to blow back the Legion, they're infecting the planet. You have to fight them off on each planet, and I really do enjoy how you can see each environment become corrupted. Sort of like how the corruption in Terraria could spread and sort of corrupt whatever environment it ends up in. The Forgotten Legion does the same thing to each one of these ecosystems, and I think that it's really beautiful how they're able to illustrate that. Speaking, though, of the Forgotten Legion, let's talk about this full world system that they have implemented, because the universe is alive in Starlink Battle for Atlas, and I think that that is something that they managed to do fairly well in this game. While the Legion is a bit boring to take down in that it's the same sort of enemies again and again and again, if you get past that, the actual system that the Legion uses is really, really cool. There is a hierarchy system where you have extractors, primes, and dreadnoughts, which I won't get into the specifics of each one of those things, but basically it's sort of like an army ranking system where dreadnoughts deploy the primes and primes deploy the extractors, and if you leave the Legion unchecked, they will overrun planets. It's really, really well done, and I really do enjoy the concept that just leaving a planet unattended will cause it to get overrun. It makes it feel like you're actually fighting a war and not just doing a scripted, you know, playthrough of a game. It feels like there's actually stuff going on in the world. I personally think that that's really cool and a very interesting game mechanic. The pilots and combat is another thing that is of course a big draw to this game. Each pilot has a very unique ability. Whether or not you'll actually find yourself using the pilot's ability is questionable. I have a couple of friends who have gotten this game, one of whom has told me that he personally does not use his pilot abilities very often. However, I, on the other hand, love RPGs, love character customization, and really get into the whole concept of trying to optimize each character's setup. Of course, there is a skill tree allowing for pretty in-depth character customization of each character, although you can eventually max out every ability on the skill tree. So, in a sense, while you do get to customize your character, it is a bit limited in the actual number of choices that you can make. It isn't like a proper skill tree where you could follow one path, unlock a certain set of abilities, but there is still sort of the level of it does feel like you are customizing and personally choosing how to improve your character when it levels up. The combat system is really entertaining as well. I enjoy the live-action combat system in this game. I don't really know how else to put it other than I enjoy the combat. Ground-based combat is definitely preferable to space-based combat. However, that may just be because of the fact that ground-based combat feels easier to me, and I have never personally enjoyed space-based combat games. Period. However, not the entirety of the game is actually taking place in space. A lot of it takes place on the ground. A good bit of it does take place in space, but most of the game is on the planet. So, with that in mind, if you're like me and you're not a huge fan of space-based combat, you know, you don't have to worry about that. However, I will say that as far as space-based combat goes, the controls are smooth and it isn't like it's glitchy or anything. Overall, the game in most of its mechanics is pretty good. As far as the bare bones description of this game goes, it's pretty good. The combat system is good, the character customization system is pretty good, especially with the mod system, which I didn't even really get into, but the mod system is extremely comprehensive. The world building is good. The story, however, is a questionable part. Now we're going to dive into some of the things that I'm a little bit more critical of in this game. So as I just mentioned, the story is definitely one of the things that I'm a little bit critical of. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that Starlink is a kid's game. It isn't going to be some kind of heavy-hitting, you know, amazing story arc that just captivates, you know, the audience. But that being said, it could have been a little bit better. There's a couple of basic elements of storytelling that just kind of fall flat for me. The villain does not seem like a very relatable, tangible person, if you understand what I'm saying. One of the things that makes a good villain, separates your Justice League Steppenwolf from your Infinity War Thanos, is characterization. There's like zero characterization of the villain in this game. You know he wants to take over Atlas, and that's about it. It falls flat for that. The characters, as in the Starlink characters like Mason, Levi, Chase, etc., you get a pretty good feel for those characters. But this big bad villain, it's just this entity you're trying to bring down. And it doesn't help that this entity wears a mask the entire time and you don't really understand truly what you're fighting. Even when you get to the end, the story sort of falls flat. The boss fight is quite honestly the easiest fight that I had in the entire game. It's easier to kill than some high-level extractors, and primes, for sure, way easier to fight than primes and dreadnoughts. The final boss fight, for me, I just kind of got done with it, and I was like, that's it? You know? The fight was cool, in and of itself, graphically speaking, but it was too easy, and it just didn't feel like it came to a head plot-wise. I don't know, personally. And I will say that there is a plot point about midway through the story where something happens to a very major character in the storyline, and there's just been so little introduction and explanation of that character that you don't it's hard for that to impact you how it should. And anyone who's played the game will understand what I'm referring to. But I definitely think that the characterization of a particular character who has something happen to them midway through the story should have been set up a little bit better. So the story is something that I do criticize. However, it's not something that affects the game to the point that it makes it a bad bad game. It does detract from it a bit, but here's the thing, for me personally, that really detracts from the game. I said combat was one of the highlights of this game for me, and it is. But here's the problem with the combat. There are only 20 types of enemies to fight in the entire game. That's not okay. There are 21 types of animals in this game that you can scan. There are 20 types of enemies. Granted, there are different variations of each enemy. There are fire giants, extractor fire giants, then there are named fire giants that you'll find around the Wonders. There are simple outlaws, there's elite outlaws, there are extractors, ancient extractors, advanced extractors. But in the end, there's only 20 main types of enemies, and as engaging and fun as the combat system is, any system, no matter how good it is, will get old if it's the same enemies again and again and again. Now, this is a Ubisoft game, this is an RPG, of course you should expect grinding, that's a given. However, there's just not enough variety in terms of the enemies for me. Luckily, that is something that could be fixed in DLC. But that being said, that shouldn't be, we shouldn't have to wait for DLC to fix that problem. I think that for a game with as vivid of ecosystems as this game manages to pull off, a little bit more variety in terms of its enemies could have definitely been afforded. And I think that that is definitely something that this game does fall flat for. It doesn't make the game unfun, but it definitely does make the game repetitive in a sense that once you get past the first several quests, you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. The post-game content, other than exploring, if you want to actually fight tough enemies, is just more of the same. And I think that it falls flat in that respect, and that's probably my biggest criticism of the game. For as many different pilots, ships, weapons you have in this game, so many different ways to play, it doesn't matter how many things you have to shoot at the enemies if there's only 20 of the things to shoot at. You know what I'm saying? You could have the coolest gun in the world, but if you don't have a cool enemy to shoot, does it really matter? That's my biggest criticism of this game. This next thing, though, is another thing I personally have not had an issue with, but I understand why some people do, just because of how different people hold controllers. The controls are a bit iffy. What I mean by that is the boost button and the steering are probably one of the biggest things that people criticize. I won't get into the specifics, but a lot of people have criticisms of the particular button placement on the controllers. I don't. But that's not my problem with this game. My problem with this game is that the controls are not remappable. It is 2018. The fact that remappable controls are not standard in video games is something I don't understand why they're not a standard thing in video games at this point. When ARMS first came out, the thing that really held it back was non-remappable controls. And like, seriously, I don't understand why games don't have remappable controls by default. This is such an easy fix for Ubisoft to do. They literally just have to make them remappable. Like, I'm not a video game developer by any stretch of the imagination, but I cannot imagine it is that difficult to make the button schemes remappable. That is something that needs to happen to fix a lot of the criticisms that a lot of people have with this game. Again, it doesn't affect me, but the fact that the controls aren't remappable is kind of dumb in 2018, in my opinion at least. I've talked about the good, I've talked about the bad. What is my final consensus of this game? Is it something that you should get? Is it something you shouldn't get? So, personally, for me, although the game is a bit limited in terms of its in-game content, it can get a little bit repetitive. Overall, I think it is a pretty good game. It has a lot of potential, and it could have been better, but I genuinely think that this game is worth your time. At the very least, I do think it is worth getting the digital edition and seeing if you would like to then get the toys from there. I haven't talked about the toys. I do thoroughly love the toys. I bought every single toy for Starlink Battle for Atlas. Toys aside, though, the game is still a good game, and I would recommend this even though it does become a bit repetitive. It is a kid's game. I do recognize that. A kid will probably not have so much of a problem of it being repetitive. I mean, some kids just go and play the same Fortnite, you know, game, like, all the time. Like, that came out about as weirdly as I could have phrased that sentence. But the point is I feel like kids will overlook that. But even without that, even as an adult, even as an older person, I think you will enjoy this game. If RPG things if you enjoy RPG games, if you enjoy open world exploration-based games, I think you'll enjoy this, and I do genuinely recommend Starlink Battle for Atlas. What do I give it overall out of 10? I give it an 8 out of 10. Although it does get repetitive, the core combat system is great. The story is subpar at points, but is still not completely horrible. The world building is absolutely amazing. There's a ton of hidden lore, even if it is a bit repetitive at times. You do get a pretty good feel for the lore of the game, and overall the graphics and art style of this game is absolutely captivating and one of the highlights of this game for me, and that goes along with the world building a lot. But along with that, the combat system is, like I said, repetitive. The customization that is there does compensate for that, though, on your end. I just wish there were more things for me to shoot at with my awesome, modded out, crazy ship. So that is it for my Starlink Battle for Atlas review. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to see more Starlink content, be sure to stay tuned, or just go ahead and check out the existing Let's Play I have on my channel. I spent the first 10 episodes working my way through the core story, and the final 2 episodes, 11 and 12, going through the Star Fox content. So if that is something that would interest you, be sure to check that out. I'll have a ton of Starlink content coming up on my channel, and a ton of other things. Spyro, Pokemon maybe, Skylanders, of course. So yes, if any of that interests you, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think about Starlink Battle for Atlas, and if you don't have the game yet, just tell me what you think in general about the things so far. So yeah, that's all for now. This has been PortalMaster9351. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and shout out to all my patrons on Patreon, especially Liam Corner, The Collector Creepypasta, and Portal Power TV. That's all for now. See you guys next time.